a red sphere appears in space. Subsequently, an unknown gate opened in the center of the city of Jiangcheng, which was released by a swarm of indescribable monsters whose nature people could not determine. At first, the creatures resembled insects, but as other gates opened, mythical creatures from legends began to appear before the people in terrifying guises, and they were known as monsters of destruction. The monsters of destruction ravaged the entire city, and humanity found itself defenseless against them. Cities one after another crumbled under their relentless onslaught. The scene changes and we see a family that wants to escape and survive from these monsters. One of the monsters is heading towards them, and it clearly intends to devour them. The father tells his daughter that he will definitely protect them, but the monster is already opening its maw. But at that very moment, her father reveals his superpowers. And so, ever since the gate appeared, abilities were awakened in some people to fight these monsters. Soon, these awakened ones began to form guilds to fight the giant monsters of destruction. And our main character's name is Sui. He was the only person in this world who possessed the 5 elements: fire, water, thunder, wind, and earth. And he was also one of the few S-class awakened ones. He had gathered his own guild that freed cities from the siege of destruction monsters. With his head held high, our hero looked ahead at the bright sky. He thought that it was all over now, and they would soon be back to their old life. But what he saw gave him a real shock. After all, the creature that crawled out of that portal was beyond his comprehension. The war with this monster went on for days and nights. And in the end, everyone died. And even he, our S-class hero, could not defend himself. And when the monster is already attacking our protagonist, the hero loses all hope and is ready to accept his fate. But then some girl with a sword comes along and cuts off the monster's arm, and our protagonist sees that it's Hongyu, who is still alive. She attacks the monster and tells our hero to get out of here while she fights him. The monster starts to attack her, and she immediately pulls back, and then prepares to launch another attack, after which she runs down his arm with impressive speed, heading for his head. And she knows his eye is his, and she knows his eye is his weakness. And when she tries to launch an attack, he deflects it. Our hero sees her fighting him, and notices the fact that this monster is just taunting her, smirking a wicked grin. Our hero uses earth magic to help his girlfriend. He shouts to his girlfriend the fact that they have to defeat him together. Hongyu looks at the protagonist with confusion and says something that he is really very stubborn, and meanwhile attacks the evil monster, striking his eye. And she says something to the effect that he never listens to anyone. And then just as she lands on the floor, she takes our hero under her arm and tells him to run away from here. Our hero asks, "Did anyone else survive?" And she says, "We're the only survivors." Our hero doesn't understand how this could even happen, but then he notices something. Limbs or tentacles are piercing his friend's stomach. And when his friend is upstairs, she tells our hero to run faster while this monster is distracted by her. Looking at this monster with an evil grin, the hero realized that this battle was initially a losing battle. Then the monster throws his friend, then the monster throws Hong on the ground, which simply dies and lies dead. The hero can't believe it and unleashes his thunder power. He runs full speed at this monster to crush it with a single attack using his thunder power. The hero shoots his energy ball at this monster, but this monster just dodges, and behind him there is just an explosion. And because the protagonist lost so much energy, he just falls down. And then he looks at Hongyu and thinks about if rebirth exists. Then our hero swears that he will do anything to end this disaster once and for all. And the moment this monster wants to step on our protagonist, but our hero is called out by someone telling him to wake up. Sue looks at Fatty and doesn't understand what's going on, but Fatty takes his hands and tells him to run away because people are dying outside. The protagonist doesn't understand what's going on or what they're dying from, but when he looks down the hallway, he sees the students running from something, and some of them even fall to the floor. Then he notices tentacles grabbing the girl, and those tentacles were from this horrible monster. And our hero remembers that the attack of destruction monsters was in his school even before the gate was opened. Our hero, seeing all this horror, thinks that he was reborn 10 years ago. The hero runs down the corridor and he knows that this is the way he got out of the school. But, unfortunately, not everyone survived. The tentacles of the bloodthirsty monster blocked this corridor, and some of the students simply didn't survive. Sue recalled with horror the screams of his classmates. But back then, all of them didn't have the courage to save them, because it was the first time they faced these monsters. Fear and instincts made them choose to flee. And then also our hero remembers his friend Hongyu, who tells him to run away. But remembering that moment when she was dead, our hero stops, because in his past life he didn't know that his abilities would awaken in him. not to mention that he will become the strongest awakened S-class and a 9th stage mage. The hero begins to talk about how awakened ones are usually distinguished by 2 characteristics. The first is their potential power rating. There are many different grades from S and up to F. The second is skill level, which is divided into 9 grades. Stage 1 uses magic bombs, Stage 3 uses magic blasts, while Step 9 uses emerald flashes of flame. Our hero, looking at his hands, wondered what step he was now on. And it turned out that he was only on the first step. But still, the abilities of mages of the 9th stage are the most useless. The hero, looking at this monster, which kills his classmates, and the hero thinks that to defeat this monster alone is simply impossible. And at the moment when he wanted to help everyone else, our red-haired fat man again takes the protagonist by the hand and asks our hero, "Why are you standing there? Do you want to go back and save them?" After all, even those who were captured by the monster were stronger than our hero. Sue thinks about the fact that if he goes to help them, there will be only one end and he will just die. But if he follows the path from his past life, at least he will be able to share what he knows. And then our hero hears someone telling the monster to let their students go. We see 2 old men running towards the monster. One of them was red-haired and the other had almost no hair at all. The old man with red hair tells our guys to run away quickly. The red-haired fat man and our hero Sui looks at these old men and thinks about what they are doing here. They think about the fact that they were the strictest teachers in their school, and among themselves they named them Bullhead and Horsetail. After the disaster they disappeared without a trace, but some of the students said that they saw them fleeing from the place, and there were rumors that they were ashamed to return to the school because at the critical moment they failed to protect the students. And as it turned out, in a past life, it was these old men who helped many students escape from this school and apprehended this monster. The old men look at this monster and think it's useless. One of the students asks the old men to save her. The old men, looking at the helpless student, immediately rush to her rescue and hit the monster with their mops. But these mops just break against this monster, and he starts attacking these old men immediately, throwing them back. The monster approaches the red-haired old man and starts attacking him, and when its sting is about to reach his face, the red-haired old man notices that Sui is standing in front of him, holding back the monster. And he was shocked that his disciple had such strength and was restraining the monster. But the old man still told Sui to run away, because he would cause him more trouble. He asks Sui, "Why don't you ever listen to your teacher? Now is not the time to be stubborn." Our hero, sighing and clutching the sting of that monster tightly, says, "It's because you called me a rascal." And holding the tentacles or sting of this monster, our hero directs all his thunder energy into its body. Sui sidesteps the monster a bit, but the monster immediately attacks him. The monster attacks, but Sui dodges again, and he thinks about the fact that even though I only have the first stage now, but still, this first stage gives him considerable strength and speed. And when the hero is thrown back, Sui thinks about the fact that as an awakened mage, he is not strong in close combat. And relying so much on spells, awakened mages of the first class suffer from mana shortage. All awakened are divided into 6 main classes: Support, Assassin, Tank, Mage, Warrior, and Rifleman. Mages are considered the weakest of the first class. This is due to their limited mana supply. There are 2 ways to realize the abilities of mages. The first is to spend their mana to create magical elements that form abilities. This ability is strong, but uses too much mana. Second, manipulate elemental elements around to create skills with lower mana consumption. Because of the lack of mana, first-class mages cannot cast strong abilities or control large amounts of the element. Simply put, lack of mana prevents you from casting spells when you want to. So if our hero wants to defeat this monster, it will be more effective to control the weaker elemental elements. The hero stands still and looks at the destroyed building, and since the earth elemental elements are now predominant nearby, it will be easier for him to use this. But the school building is concrete and it will be difficult for him to control it with the current mana. As for the fire elements, there are too few against this monster and they are useless. The hero thinks about what to do now, and when he thinks about it, the tentacles fly towards him, but he immediately dodges, and then he realizes that it was a deceptive maneuver, and the tentacles hit him in the stomach and throws him into the wall. And as the monsters approach him to eat him, our red-haired fat guy arrives and tells Sue to run, meanwhile using a fire extinguisher to distract the monster and block his view. Our Sue looks at this guy and thinks about what he's doing, and then notices and thinks what he thinks is smoke. Sue calls out to the fat man and the teachers, telling them what he has thought of something. The red-haired old man is indignant at what the brat has thought up. Our hero, looking at these teachers, tells them to believe him, and he knows how to get them out safely. But still the teachers don't know how to react to this. But the almost bald old man tells the red-headed old man to trust him. Our hero tells Teacher and I, meaning the red-headed old man, that he remembers a chemistry lesson where Teacher and I told him about a reaction. The hero sucks up all the smoke he has and points it towards the monster, and then a sphere of smoke appears around the monster. And the hero remembers if you mix powder and air in one place and then use fire, there will be a huge field explosion. The hero uses his fire skill, but nothing happens, and the red-haired teacher starts yelling at him, telling him that the powder in the fire extinguisher is inert. And when this monster is almost about to devour our hero, Sue thinks about the fact that things didn't go according to plan. But just at that moment, the red-haired fat man and the old men ram this monster. And then the red-haired old man starts yelling at our hero, saying that he risked their lives by using a reaction that he doesn't even remember the consequences of. And then the monster heads in their direction again. And at the same moment, the hero notices something, and when the monster runs straight at them, the hero rushes forward at the monster. The monster makes an attack, but the hero immediately dodges, and this monster cuts only his tie. Hero grabs this monster's tentacles and says that it won't work a second time. He then also raises his hand up and uses the power of thunder, saying that since he's not good at chemistry, he'll use physics, and so he fries the monster completely. And thus the monster falls to the ground. The hero stands in front of the defeated monster, and these old men run up to him. They start asking him what it was and how he did it. And when it starts to rain, the hero pulls out his hand and realizes that it's black rain, which means that 2 weeks from now the first gate will open. Countless monsters will break out, and in an instant, Zenshin will be completely destroyed. The hero, looking at these guys, thinks that the history of his past life is repeating itself, and he remains as pathetic in the eyes of the creature who so carelessly dealt with him in the past. And the hero thinks with sadness in his eyes that he is left to watch helplessly as the catastrophe repeats itself again. And then he is called by his red-haired friend, and he says that he must have been hiding these powers so that he would not be found and experimented on. But since he's his friend, he'll protect him. The hero tells him what an idiot he is. But this fat guy is serious. He tells the judge that he's timid and greedy and a little stupid, but he knows he's very rich. So this fat man suggests to our hero that he gather some able-bodied guys to guard him. And then at that very moment, the hero comes up with a wonderful idea to gather able-bodied guys. The next day, school is back to its old routine. Our red-haired fat man sits and wonders where his friend Sue is gone. Fatty thinks that Sue probably doesn't trust him because he is afraid that he will report him to the government. And then a text message arrives on his phone, and it was his friend Sui, suggesting that he meet him at Kanjiai's diner on Changfeng Street. And when our fat guy gets to that very spot, Sui calls out to our fat guy. The scene changes, and we see what we are now in some kind of cafe. The fat man looks at his friend in surprise and asks, "So you want to start an organization and you're asking me to help?" Sue says something that he got it right. And that fat man's name was Sungwon Fa. He was a real estate tycoon in Zhenjiang. Sungwon says their finances and paperwork will be fine, but they have to take college exams this year, so he doesn't understand why he'd want to give him such a headache. But Sui says that soon the entrance exams won't mean anything, because there will be monsters here tomorrow, and there will only be more of them in the future. And in a month, Jiangchen will be hit by the first wave of monsters, and hundreds of monsters will flood into the city, and Jiangchen will be completely devastated by them. Fatty looks at his friend in surprise and asks, if the monsters destroy Jiangchen, then what's the point of creating organizations? Sue, looking intently at his friend, says, "We need to stop the wave of monsters, and in a month he should gather a group of future awakened ones. They haven't faced the monsters yet, and it's easier to hire them now and guide them later. And they also have to find ordinary people to help us develop weapons against the monsters of destruction, as well as monetize resources from the other world. And there will be so many different guilds in the future, and we need to create our own as soon as possible." Sungwon hesitates but still trusts him since he is his best friend, and Sui says what he knew he could trust him. Then Sungwa turns his head around to look for the waitress and wonders why she is taking so long to come to them. And when he turns around, he sees the waitress taking the order. Then Sinwa asks Suya, "Did you choose this place because some special dish will do here?" But Sui says no, one of the future awakened ones works here and that's why he came here. But Sun Wang wonders, how do you know that this girl is an awakened, and so busty? And Suya lies without blushing and says he can sense the aura of the awakened. And for his own reasons, he can't tell Tastic that he actually came from the past, because that would seem like bullshit to normal people. Sue embarrassingly closes her eyes and says that this girl isn't some random busty waitress, but Manhwa, after waiting for the waitress, decides to place an order through the app. Then, Sue also remembers that this girl will be the world's only C-class healer, and it was the untouchable priestess of Kong Yao. And usually, awakened sapports are the lowest ranked of the class due to their weak combat abilities, and awakened healers are the weakest among sapports. But Kong Yao possesses strong healing abilities, and usually healing magic works by speeding up metabolism. However, Kong Yao's healing magic utilizes the principle of regeneration, and she could use her ability on several people at a time, and this allowed her Temple Knight Guild to become the best unawakened S-class guild, and on par with the C-class battle awakened guilds. And our hero thinks to himself, if she was in our guild, they would surely have a chance to survive. Then Fatty starts yelling, then that app starts hanging, and everyone immediately starts staring at them. And that gets the attention of that girl Kong Yao. Sue tells her friend Fatty to be quiet as people are looking at them. Kong Yao then comes over and apologizes for making them wait so long, but now she's ready to take their order. Our hero embarrassingly, without looking at this girl, says something that they will be 2 medium sets. The girl asks if anything else is needed, and our hero embarrassedly scratches the back of his head and says something that's not all. He brings up the fact that now Kanya's character and aura are not what he remembers. She killed a man in the past because he touched her, so it's even a little unusual for him to see her so timid before waking up. And our hero thinks she will be changed by events that happen in the future. Our hero reaches out to this girl and asks her to wait. The girl turns around and asks, "Do you want to order something else?" But Sue simply gives her a card and says, "We can talk when you're done with business." But at that moment, he notices the stares of the other men, who are clearly hostile. And because of this, the girl does not know how to react, so embarrassedly averts her eyes to the side. But still she agrees and says that of course she will meet him. And then, as Kong Yao walks away embarrassed, our hero thinks that it's good that she agreed, otherwise it would have been awkward. But he thinks about the fact that the visitors had a strange reaction, as if he had broken some unspoken rule. Then our fat man pulls our hero and tells him to see something. Someone asks our hero to look at the phone, and when our hero looks at the phone, he gets shocked, because it was this girl's ass, and he doesn't understand why there are so many pictures of Kong Yao in the comments. So our hero begins to suspect that it may be the handiwork of those scoundrels who sit in this cafe. Our hero still stares at Kong Yao the same way and wonders why isn't that the way Kong Yao is acting, and thinks about the fact that her character must have changed because of these guys. That's why she dislikes being touched so much. So our hero has to make a decision, because if he wants to accept her into his team, he has to make the first move before her character changes. The scene changes and we see our hero drinking coffee and Fatty wonders if maybe you gave that girl the wrong address. But the hero says no, he made 2 notes on purpose, in case she loses one. Sue holds out the note to Sangwon and says that everything is correct here, so Fatty says that she just decided not to come. And it later turns out that this address with the note was in the trash. And at this point we see Kong Yao standing in front of the mirror. Then the door is ajar, and some man peeks out from behind that door, asking Yao, "Are you leaving already?" Kong Yao immediately puts on her tank top and says something to the effect that yes, she is leaving soon. And as it turns out, that man was her uncle who is offering some money to this lady. Kong Yao nervously says that it's okay since she still has some money left. But the uncle comes over and takes Kong Yao's hand and holds out an amount of money and says, "Come on, you and I are not strangers." He says it's dangerous for a girl like her to walk down the street at night without money, so we should just call a cab. But the girl immediately takes her hand away and says thanks uncle, but she has to go. And then she runs off and slams the door behind her, and this uncle looks at her with a maniacal look. Then this man looks in the trash and he knows where this girl is going. The scene changes and we see some 2 guys and apparently they are some hooligans and they are staring at this building and they are probably waiting for Kong Yao to come out of it. The guy with brown hair asks, "Gong, you do realize that in fact this is a crime?" But Blondie says that this hottie is that celebrity, and if they take a couple pictures, they can relax for a while. After all, she stays home after work, so they won't have another opportunity. But today, some idiot asked her out on a date, and they want to see if she'll come out. And when they see Kanheo coming out, they immediately start running towards her. Kanheo notices that a man is following her, so she speeds up her step, but she doesn't notice and crashes into this blonde man. The blonde man says that you bumped into me, so you should apologize. Kong Yao apologizes but immediately walks away from his stare and heads on her way, but this guy grabs her arm. And Kong Yao asks, What do you want to do? The blonde guy wonders what else he can do and twists our girl around. She begs and pleads not to do that to her, but what Yellow Gate says is that it's just one kiss, so there's nothing to be embarrassed about. But Kanyao doesn't want that, so he immediately punches him in the groin, which makes this guy fall and crack his head on the ground, and Kanyao starts running away. And then when Yellow Gate gets up, he tells him to catch her because she's about to immediately run away. And at this point, the black-haired guy takes that order and heads towards Kanyao, and then grabs Tsunao's leg, but immediately gets kicked by her. Chuanyao gets up and can run as fast as she can, but still she gets grabbed by her hair and falls to the ground. The blonde guy holds this girl by her hair and says that she hit him and he's in a lot of pain, so she should apologize profusely. What will happen next to a girl named Kanyao? Will that blonde guy do something bad to her? Or will someone come to her rescue? You'll find out in the next episode, and if you watch this video to the end, write the word thunder to let me know you want a sequel to this story. In this video I did a retelling of 7 chapters, which unfortunately were not in English, but these chapters were in Chinese, so I will continue to do a retelling of this manhwa if you support me with likes and comments, as well as subscribing to the channel. That's all for now. See you all again and bye bye.